everyone. Welcome to Authentic as Fuck podcast. My name is San. I'm a marketer and I'm a storytelling coach. And in this podcast, I help members of my community kind of coach through anything related to marketing, branding, storytelling. Today, we have George. Welcome, George.
Thank you.
How you doing? So let's start with kind of your introduction and then kind of your story first, like what you do and how you got here.
So, I'm an architectural designer, originally from the Bahamas, moved to New York, and I've been here for about a year. And I guess I have a few stories just in that kind of change. And just since joining Night Owl, just being able to say my story and being able to be clear in my story has been key for me. And then also as to how to probably help some other people who was in my position, if I'm even ready for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you when you first joined Night Owl, was it like was it just to work on your storytelling, or did you have like a specific business that you wanted to start, or side hustle you wanted to start, or something like that?
I've always heard about storytelling, and especially from like my dad. Every time he tries to relate the business stories, he always uses stories, and it's the same thing of sitting on the porch, and he always looks at me and says, "Hey, I got a story," and it's from those stories that I gained a lot of clarity. And so the problem for me was coming in and dealing with anxiety and dealing with confidence, because I was this older guy coming into a profession that I took a huge sabbatical on. I just had to I was trying to find the right story to say what my strengths are, I guess, and how I could, one, help myself to be able to help other people. And so clarity to me is power and key. And stories do that so well.
So this, like, what from our previous conversation, I think we wanted to kind of like look at your story and your whole life as together and then figure out kind of what your next steps would be, right? Or something like that.
Correct.
So let's start with that. Let's start like from the beginning. Tell us like your whole life. How did you? Yeah.
Well, let me start with how I led into the industry. So my family has like a boutique construction firm, and I have been basically born in it. I was there lifting, mixing cement. I was carrying.
This is in Bahamas?
This is in the Bahamas. Yeah, and honestly, it was one of those things that my parents did on the side because they actually had their actual jobs. But to help support the family and stuff, they did this. And so I used to hang out a lot with them, and I learned a lot. So to kind of add and help with the business, I decided to be an architect because my dad used to do a bunch of drawings and stuff inside the bedroom because the drafting table was inside my room. I had the same thing with the encyclopedia, the Britannia that they used to give you. And it's funny, even amongst all of those knowledge and stuff, they always used to have the fairy tale stories, like back in the day, like Little Bo Peep and the Three Blind Mice and whatever. So between the drawings and the stories and stuff, it was always kind of like there. When I went to school to become an architect, I did it for about 2 years. I was on top of the world, honestly. I just came out of school, finally independent. I was hot stuff, got my first car, and it was like, oh yeah, I am the man, right? Once I started working, the director at the time, he told me, he said, George, do you want to be an architect? And I said, of course, like that's what I'm doing now. What are you talking about? And he said, well, he pointed to the draftsman. He said, well, you could either do that or you could go back to school. And I said, hold on. I just got out of school. What are you talking about? Because to me, letter grades and this kind of stuff, that was really important to my parents too. it didn't resonate with me. But when I saw him create an environment from a story, from the client's wishes, from what they wanted, I never did that before because everything was numbers, and my parents are engineers. So everything is very regimented, and you look at it very analytical. And I'm analytical too. I look at things very parametric and very pattern like. But there was just something poetic about how he just kind of like revisions and like, oh, maybe this way and maybe that way. And I think
Wait, so what was the difference between what you were doing and what an architect does?
I was basically the technician.
Okay.
Yeah, I was the CAD tech.
Like an engine. Okay, so it was like an engineer almost.
Almost like
Like
an
you were.
engineer, almost like a drafter. So I'm the hands for the architect, but I'm
Got
not
it. Got
actually
it. Okay.
designing and stuff like that. So it was
Got
like
it.
at the bottom of the totem pole. So I
Got it.
went back to school, a little older.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So there's like a two clear separate ways you can go in that field.
Yeah.
Like you can become an architect or you can be a
Yeah, and
draftsman or
normally
whatever.
what
Yeah.
happens in the draftsman side that some people get good at the tool itself, and it could be at an AutoCAD, it could be in
Mm,
it could be in Adobe
got
where
it.
you get into more visualizations,
Got
and so
it.
you actually could kind of branch into the fun stuff.
Got it.
um, but yeah, I decided to go a little bit more on the things that you don't reap the rewards right away. It takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to get licensed for it. You don't have to be licensed to do the drafting, the visualizations, and this kind of stuff.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Um, I basically went to school, did that for about 4 years, got my master's, and then I came back home and I did like a ton of businesses, and I was really gung ho to like really like, oh, I'm gonna, finally be this thing that I wanted to be. Um, Honestly, after about a year and a half, and I don't want to skirt over it, I did have a breakup. I did have a breakup, and the breakup was definitely.
Was it like a long
It
term
was. It
relationship?
was. It was a long breakup. That it was my ex fiance. It was my,
Okay. Okay.
and
Got
so
it.
a lot of the things I think I was doing was towards. And as an architect, you're trying to architect this life, right?
Mm,
And like try to really push through it and everything else. And um, long story short, it just didn't. It didn't work out. Um, it didn't work out, and then I decided to change my environment. I said I didn't have anything to really stay for. I was just like, well, how can I, you know, be better? Because I was getting down like
mm-hmm.
the business route. While I was doing the
Mm-hmm.
drafting, I was working in construction, I was working on my license. I was actually working in 4 places. So I finished all that and I said, let me just start brand new. I didn't really get
Mm-hmm.
to be international with architecture. So that's when I went to
Mm-hmm.
China, hence the books.
So were you work at that time? Were you working for like a architecture firm, or were
Hmm.
you kind of working for yourself? Okay.
Both.
Oh, okay.
So
So
firm,
you were like doing freelance projects as
freelance
well as like
projects.
working
I was doing
at a
construction,
firm.
and I was also working in a firm.
Okay, got it. And after you break up, you kind of like
I lost the motivation.
had
I
like a
basically lost
reset moment.
Yeah, my North Star was gone. I was just like, damn, I've been
Yeah.
doing all these things with other
But
people.
that's like a big change, huh? Like what was the thing that made you like drop everything and go to China?
You know what? Like I said, the only lightning rod I had was just like I didn't really get international experience. And as someone in a
Mm,
local place, it's good to get that local experience so that if you come back, your credibility goes up.
got it. Yeah.
And
So
so
were you planning on doing that, like anyway,
it was in the
at
back
some
of my
point?
mind, but I had a lot of things
Yeah.
in front of it. And then when all of the things in the front of my mind was gone, it was just like, what's left? I was just like, well, I got this thing over
Got
here,
it.
so let me just try it out.
Got it.
I ended up in Shanghai. They were doing a bunch of projects at that time. Like architecture was kind of booming at that time, and so I went over there for
Mm,
just to go there for about 6 months or so, 6 months or whatever on a contract, and it kind of blew my mind because it was a million expats, a million. And if I have to, if you think about the states being maybe 56 million or something like this, suppose you condense all of it down to the ratio of 1 million. Chances are you might bump into Steve Jobs. Or something like this. You're gonna bump into these people, and anyone who goes there, they're it's constant change. They're always trying new things, and the buzz was just there, and new projects and buildings, and it was just really fun, and the energy was just so addictive. And coming from a local place where you don't have that much anonymity, I had that. It was weird. And so, really and truly, what happened from China was that I was able to kind of be myself. I didn't
Got
really
it.
have that before. And
So when you were in the Bahamas, you were like, everybody knows who you are, and
a little bit.
like, yeah,
I was kind of, I just,
what your life is like,
yeah, it's
and all
kind of
that.
mapped
Yeah.
out for you a bit, and for some it's okay. But I think as a creative, sometimes we want more. We want to create more connections.
I feel like that's kind of how I felt when I went away for college, and I feel like that's a lot of how Americans feel
Mm,
when they go away from home to go to college,
yeah,
for, like university. Like they're in this new place, they don't know anyone,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like almost like a restart. Yeah.
Yes, and I got to try my what ifs, and
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, after I finished my job and I had that story where they were I just decided to just try something different. I'm taking a sabbatical.
Was it like a American company or a
No, it
Bahamian
was
company that you were with?
no, it was a Chinese firm. It was a Chinese firm that had a base in Germany and then also in the U.S.
Okay.
I couldn't understand the Chinese that much to be able to, you know, see some of the documentation, but I saw one or two of the
Mm,
guys, and I just stayed there for a little bit, and I just decided to just say what if.
okay. Yeah.
So, surprisingly, as you're bumping into all of these people who are enjoying the life and doing this anonymity, I actually bumped into a guy, and he kind of became my best friend at the time,
Okay.
and he offered me a job in at a Swedish company. Never worked with the Swedes. I've never even met a Swede, but they were based in there, and one of their biggest things was they were an engineering firm, but they did it for automobiles. There was a brand new car, an automobile. And I'm just like, a brand new car? Who has a brand new car from scratch? It
Mhm.
was like something. It was like the new frontier, and I just like I have to jump on this. But they say, well, George, your English is kind of good, so how about you be a senior editor? I'm like, say what? A senior editor? So I was basically senior editor, and I ended up learning project management at this firm, and that got me into like learning more about the business and processes and SOPs and everything else.
Wait, so it's a car company, but you were doing architecture
No, I
stuff for
just
them?
changed my industry.
Oh, so but for the first 6 months, you were in an
Yes,
architecture firm,
yes.
and then you completely did a career switch.
Let's say why not? I'm trying this what if thing. Just
Okay.
give it
Yeah.
a try. One
Okay.
more year. One more year. One more
Okay.
year.
Okay.
Right? Plus, I'll get my visa.
So it was like the opportunity came and you were like, okay, let's try this out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not? And what turned into a year turned into three, and then it was just
Okay.
like, oh crap, what am I doing with my life? At some point,
So you were working there in doing project management.
pretty much, yeah, yeah. And they had me traveling to between Shanghai and Beijing, and it's just they're completely two different places.
Hmm.
And so at the same time, I wanted to run the marathon, but the air quality wasn't the best at the time. And so I ended up going to a spin class, and I ended up being really good. And so the instructor says, "Hey, do you want to be an instructor?" And I'm like, "Nah, nah, nah, I don't want to do this," and blah blah blah. And he said the key words to me. He said, "Well, you know, you could get paid to work out. I'm like, what?
Mm.
Light bulb. What? I get paid to play? And I think this concept more or less stuck with me for a long time. And I ended up doing that. And I was still working at the place. So I found joy doing my job that was kind of like rudimentary and this thing. And I said, man, I already did my passion. I already did like what I'm comfortable with. Why don't I just do something that I don't like, I'm good at, that I don't even think about? And so I
Mm.
said, maybe I should maybe I should try to open up a studio. But because there
Mm.
wasn't any work and stuff at that time back home, because I kept like, hey, is there any work? Is there any work? And they said, no. And I was getting afraid that I was leaving my profession and going into so many other things that, I would have been irrelevant. And it just so happened that I opened up this firm. I mean, I ended up meeting another guy who wanted to open up a studio. I dropped my ego because normally it was just like, oh, who's the CEO? I'm the CEO. You're the CEO. And we
Mm.
did like this like dance, right? But I already had a job. So I said, you know what? Let me just step back. I'll do the marketing and this kind of stuff for that. I know nothing about this stuff, but I was the one behind the computer.
Okay.
So I said, why not? I
Wait, this is like a what kind of studio?
it was like a boot camp. It was a boot camp studio, fitness boot
Okay.
camp studio.
Like Barry's boot camp or something like that.
It was Barry's mix. Actually, you know what? Yeah, Barry's mixed with Orange Theory ish kind of this kind of vibe.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So there was a lot of pump and fist, and I kid you not,
Hmm.
I it took me out of
And this was in China still, right?
this was in Shanghai still.
Yeah.
I'm still in this. I'm still 12 time zones away.
Yeah.
My parents are still wondering like when you coming home, but I'm like, yeah, but this thing, and it's kind of fun. There's a lot of music. I meet a bunch of people all the time, and it I had an opportunity to go back. The company I was at said, hey, we want you to go to this other place, but I couldn't leave the business because I was also a trainer. So I had to make a choice: stay or give a chance on me, on us. Um, I just took a chance. I say, hey, how far is this gonna go, really?
Yeah.
Um, and we had this. We was doing it. The business was kind of like we had this all this yoga and stuff, things that we just don't do because this guy was an
Yeah.
ex rugby player from Wales, big bloke, could chug it down. Good guy, he was like a jolly green giant kind of thing, like, and I was like I don't know, the skeptical, witty guy. Yeah, we were
Okay.
like a good duo. I brought
Okay.
the strategy, he brought the task. He just turn off his brain and rugby that bad and just get it done. I'm like, this guy. So it really worked itself out, and the strategy was basically, hey, if we can't do it, it ain't here. I can't do yoga, it ain't here. I said, you good at this, I'm good at this. Let's just combine it, and we just sent a message to everybody who we knew in China, and 3 people came out of 1,000. Those 3 people told their friends, and then told their friends, and from word of mouth, we were the feel good guys, and that's what we became, Feel Good Fitness. Um, and I loved it. Met tons of people. Heard when people come to the fitness studio, they drop outside and they just try to bring themselves and try to be better and this kind of stuff. And the messaging is always positive. And I it 4 years later, we got
So you did that for 4 years.
3 to 4 years. We ended up having clients that became investors, and we had a bigger space, and we were doing outside events, and we were doing stuff with like Under Armour, Lululemon. We did the events and this
Mm.
kind of stuff. It was fun. It was wild. It was different. But but I was doing everything. I was the trainer. I was also training other trainers. I was doing business development. I was doing like I really had to do it, like learn about KPIs, learn about the P&Ls. But I was also customer service, and I was just burnt. And so at some point in time, it was just like, nah, negative. Time to go.
Hmm.
The rubber meet the road, And so I ended up heading back home. Oh, I don't want to miss this point out. I did meet my wife at the gym.
Oh, got it. Okay.
She was like one of the final few clients when it was closing and
Like towards the end.
towards
Okay.
the end. And
Okay.
so she,
Wait. So when you moved back, what did she come with you, or
well, I think sneakily I said, "Hey, if we stay together long enough, she might be open to long distance."
okay,
It did kind of work out that way, but that's also when the following year, that's when we had COVID.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I was out of a job
While you were back home.
while I was back in the Bahamas.
Mhm.
Lost my job. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a plan. I ended up working with the government, working in the surveyor's office. And so I was working with the lines and stuff, and I was working in the Bahamas. I've never worked in the Bahamas before, like with the government. They were the most secure thing during COVID.
Mhm.
The government never goes out of business, no matter how bad business is.
Yeah.
It's a very weird concept. So it really did help me out until we basically got hitched. And then 2 years later, I ended up here. And then starting all over.
How did that happen?
How did come in?
Like moving to New York. Yeah.
She was staying in the Bahamas. I was like, I don't know why, but
Oh, so she did move to the Bahamas
she
at
stayed
some
and
point.
she stayed during COVID.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, she stayed there during COVID,
And
and
she
so
wanted to move to New York.
and we spent so much during COVID. You come to terms with your choices you've made because you spent a lot of time with it, and it ended up being
Hmm.
really nice and really amazing. And then I said, hey, let's just do this.
Hmm.
Come on now, I could never spend this much time with someone in a studio for 16
Hmm.
hours a day and still be okay with you. Something works here. So let's do it. And so that changed my life trajectory again to be into where I'm at now because she still works here. So the beginning of last year, I came.
Oh, so she came here. She went there because of her job or something.
Yeah, she was there for a short stint. She was only going there for a short stint.
Okay.
And she always laughs. She said, I went over here for a short stint and came back with a boy.
Oh, so she's originally from New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, pretty much I had to start all over again last year. And yeah, one of the things.
So last year is when you moved to New York.
Yeah.
And you got back into architecture.
I said, you know what? If I don't do it now, it's not
Uh-huh.
happening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because there's a lot of work that goes into it. And so similar to the first job that I got when I came out of school, I rocked up, I wrote out a resume, I dropped it off to the receptionist, and literally the same day
Old school.
as I was going through calculus to go back, because I didn't finish school actually. So that's
Uh-huh.
the one lie I did. I didn't actually finish school. I was in the middle of calculus. And
Okay.
oh, I need an intern. Let me just drop this resume
Yeah.
off. They call me that same day. I leave calculus. And they say, oh, yeah, you finished school, right? I'm like, I mean, how would I be here? And
Yeah.
then someone was leaving, and I was good at CAD already because I was in school. And so I was doing the CAD. And then they're like, okay, could you start next week? I'm like, yeah, sure. Literally, I pushed all of my classes to the end of the evening,
Mhm.
and they didn't even know.
Mhm.
And I did the same thing
Got it.
last year. Last
Okay.
year, I wrote a resume. I was just like, I don't even know how people find jobs in 2022. I don't know how to do the apps and the this and the that. So I decided to go old school again. I literally print out the resume, and I I was doing stuff on the field when I was in Bahamas. Even though I was working at the government, I was also still doing construction for my family. So I said, hey, I might not be able to draw, but I know what the project is at the end of completion. I know how to do that. So I could go on site, and I just found that I had to use I had to say a lot of transferable skills from project management to learning how to. I wouldn't even talk about like marketing and this kind of stuff from Feel Good, even though that was a part of it. But really and truly, it was just customer service and just talking to people. A lot of people just don't know how to
Right.
talk to people.
Hmm.
And then more or less when I came back, I knew, I went back in the industry. So literally that same week, I used the subway for the first time. I go in the subway and I'm just like, oh, where is Park Avenue? And I go downstairs and I did some research on this place already. And so you go to the doorman and they're just like, oh, well, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just going upstairs to blah blah blah. I go upstairs and I knock on the door and the first person there and I'm just like, hey, and I just start talking about the company and stuff and he's just like, yeah, 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 and then he says, wait, who are you again? It's just like, oh yeah, I came for a job, and then I pulled up my resume, and he
Hmm.
was just like, damn, this is pretty old school. No one does this anymore. And then that same week, I followed up, got the job again, and they said, yeah, if anything, the story is that no one does this anymore. So at least we know you're
Hmm.
proactive.
Got it.
And yeah,
So
yeah,
that's where you've been working for the last
and
year,
that's what I've been
basically.
working for the last year.
And what do you do there?
Um, like I'm an architectural designer or a job captain, and basically that's just a step above being a draftsman. So that means that I
Okay.
actually have to take care of the job a bit more. I have to speak to vendors. I have to make
Got it.
sure that the quality of the drawings meet up to the standards of the firm. And
Got it.
it's just like one step below project manager and this kind of stuff. And it's a position that you don't have to be licensed to be in.
Hmm.
So that's something that I'm in pursuit of right now, trying to get my license in the States and everything
Okay.
else. But the journey from
Also, you're trying to. So your goal is to pursue your career in architecture,
yeah,
like
that's
in the long
yeah
run.
to get my I want to get the title, legally have the title. I think
Hmm.
maybe that's like
But why?
um the other side to it is that the money changes when you're licensed.
Yeah, I understand. But
You mean, but why be an architect?
yeah, like do you see yourself, like, let's fast forward to the day of your funeral. do you do you see yourself like, or the day of your retirement? Do you see yourself retiring as an architect? Is that like what you want to pursue for the rest of your life?
Honestly, architecture entrepreneur.
See, that's the part I don't get, because it seems like you were kind of thrown into this space, right? Because
A little
you
bit.
grew up with it and
No,
all of
no,
that.
I
So
definitely have some of that for sure.
yeah, and like, why didn't you continue to pursue it? Like, if that's what you really wanted to do, because like I don't, from what I'm hearing, from the just the sense that I'm getting,
Hmm.
is that being an architect is not really your like dream job per se.
No, no, no. It's
I actually feel like what and tell me if I'm wrong,
no.
but
You can just go for it.
it seems like you the most the part that you were most passionate about is running that studio, what the fitness studio.
Yeah, it was super fun. I was getting paid.
I don't
I was
know.
getting paid to have fun.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what even just like the tone, like your energy of when you were talking
Yeah,
about it.
because when I do the architecture part, I find it's more of my introvert energy. It's the
Hmm.
thing I could sit and get lost in, and I don't know if I know how to properly express that. It's one of those. It was similar to when I got into architecture, and the thing that kind of propelled me was just that you sit down and you're just figuring stuff out and just experimenting and everything else. The part about architecture that really is the rub is really not having the best clients to do it, and that just really just rubs me the wrong way. I hate to say it. It's just you have tons of people talking about what they see on Instagram. You have people like, oh well,
But that's
and it's
I think that's a myth because like I see that's how I feel about when I do design, right, or when I'm coding a website. Like what I love is like I can just sit there and I can start figuring stuff, and I just literally I can zone out
yeah,
just for
yeah,
hours, like
yeah,
designing or something like that. But it's not the same kind of energy as like when I'm on Zoom teaching or something like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, so it's a different kind of passion.
It's a different kind of
But
passion,
the thing
sure.
is, I've always I've always told myself that like when I was young
Mm.
and I was like working on these shitty projects, I'm like,
Mhm.
only if I can work on better projects. But when I got the better projects, it was like, oh, only if I can work on these projects. But then when I got those projects,
Mhm.
like, I don't think that ever ends because at the end of the day,
Mm.
I mean, it's kind of like what I always talk about with like a lot of designers go into design because they think that they can express themselves or they can express their creativity through design and all of that. Like that's what we think, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you're working with clients, it's not you're not expressing yourself, you're not expressing your creativity, you're in a service business. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
if the
I
client is
agree. I
Apple,
agree.
right?
Um,
And
I would say that the thing that I've tried to really, really try to emulate is trying to, maybe it might not be for the clients, but maybe it'll be for myself. So how do I have fun architecting and learning and architecting and stuff like this? And I actually do find a lot of enjoyment doing that. And so figuring out process.
but is that even a thing in, like, I guess in design, I guess if you have your own business,
Mhm.
you can work on your own design and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in, even there's like an end, like that's not your main business, right? Like if
No,
you're,
no, no, no.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
So
facilitating fun learning to become an architect is more or less what my theme, my underlying theme right now. And it's fun actually when um, I get in, like, it's random. Like, I'd look at a window treatment and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is connected and this is point 0.5, and then this brings in more light, and this is west facing. Like,
okay,
the
I see what you mean.
principles
Yeah.
of like architecture is really dope. And the fact that, and I
So it's not that you're trying to like express your creativity. It's like you actually enjoy the the day to day act of
yeah,
doing your job.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And do you see yourself doing this for the rest of
I
your life?
do, because it's one of those things where like I would like to design the environment of my kids and my grandkids and like watch them enjoy this thing that optimizes their enjoyment in this space, because spaces are all about experiences and stories, right? And it's just kind of like, oh, what story would I like for them? And yeah, and designing the grounds, making sure it goes with the environment, because the Bahamas is all sustainable.
So
Hmm?
maybe the real question, because before we were talking about how like you were talking about maybe you want to mentor people and things like that too,
Mm.
but it almost seems like maybe you should just focus on, like, maybe your next goal should be to start your own firm.
Surprisingly, I don't.
And
Surprisingly, I don't want my own firm.
why is that?
Um,
Because you said that you enjoy that, like, doing it for yourself, something like,
no,
or
no, I
what did you
do.
mean something
I
else?
do, and I don't want to get into the. And maybe this is just me imposing this on myself.
Hmm.
I don't want to get into the trap of what is it called? Um, the business side of it, and then like worrying about the finance and worrying about like taking away from the fun.
Is that how that works? Because when I see like big architect, like big name architects, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Are they working as like a freelance? Or how does that work? Like, or do they have a firm that? And so, are they actually a business owner, or
uh,
like, for example, like if you think of like Frank Gehry, right?
yeah.
Like, is he like a freelancer, or how does that
No,
work?
he's a big company. He's definitely a big company. He's definitely one of the bigger ones for sure. But
But is he
he's
is he managing the business, or? Is there
So
somebody else running the business
so
side?
no, I think there's like three types of architects. You normally have people who are like pragmatic, and you normally have people who are like design, and then you have like people who are like in between.
Okay,
And so for people like Frank Gehry, they would be more design. And then, but then
got
if
it.
you have something towards a lot of these people are design, but I'm thinking about Renzo Piano. Renzo Piano is kind of he does more like workshop and he's more hands on, but it's definitely a pragmatic approach to beautiful design. Even big architects, they play they definitely play, but there's a lot of uh, client work and a lot of massaging
Mm,
of like why this budget is in this and that, because even architecture itself hasn't really moved forward with design, as would it be branding and marketing and this kind of stuff. We haven't really pushed that far, and like the things that I saw back then problems wise are still the same problems I see now. So
got it.
it's there's lots of rubs.
Yeah, I think it's a similar in the agency
Yeah.
business. Like most agencies are not like most agency owners are not creative people.
Mm.
They're the account people.
Right.
They're the ones that
Yeah.
brings in the business.
But you
So
need them so bad. It's so annoying, but it's true. You need them.
it's usually like a partnership, right? So there might be a creative person. Like it sounds like this when you were running the studio, you were the business guy.
I was a business
Is
guy,
that
but I
right?
was also the designer too.
Yeah. The problem, like the problem with that is like what I hear from that period of your life when you said like you got too burnt out.
Yeah.
So like people that are like born to grow businesses and run operations, they're like masters at delegating.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? But it sounds like you were not really good at delegating
Nah, of
because you were doing everything yourself, right?
course, yeah.
So, and that's kind of the downfall of a creative person
Mm.
because when you're creative, um, a lot of creative people need that creative control, right?
Mm.
Like I need things done this way, specific,
Yeah,
this particular way,
yeah,
and it's really hard to like. Whereas if you're a businessman, like I don't give a fuck how this, like I don't give a fuck if this website is like perfect or not. Like they don't really care, so it's easier for them to delegate,
yeah.
and
So,
you need a little bit of
so
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, as much as I would like I think when I was younger, maybe the fantasy was like of the design, but I've definitely gotten more pragmatic for sure. I've
Hmm.
definitely gotten more pragmatic with it, and so I don't have the fluffy words.
Okay.
When a client comes to me and they're just like, and they try to architect me. They're like, oh, well, this design, and we were thinking about this. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really nice, but what are your goals? Well, like, what's your budget? Like, let's.
Hmm.
But it depends on who I'm talking to. Depends on who I'm talking to, and
Mm.
from like you have to read the room. Like you massage it a bit, and like, okay, well, what how much what value do you have in this, and like what these kind of things. And,
It sounds like you can use a lot of storytelling with your clients.
oh yeah,
Like
oh yeah,
that's kind of what I did at my agency. Like I think where I developed the skill of like making people say I never thought of it that way.
yeah,
That came from me running my agency and working with clients and
mm,
employees and stuff like that because I had to constantly convince people to do something, right? Like because there's always a gap between what the client wants and what's really possible, right? And then there's always a gap between what the designer is trying to do
yeah,
and what the client wants. So I always have to bridge that gap. So I constantly have to explain things in a way that they're going to understand.
yeah,
And usually when that happens, they're like, "Oh yeah, I never thought of it that way," or something like that.
yeah. Um,
Like a good example is this. Like, do you know WordPress?
I do.
So WordPress is like a blogging or website
Mm,
platform that everyone uses. It's the most popular. Like I think 70% of the website out there or something is made with WordPress.
yeah.
And um, like a new developer came and he's like, why don't you like WordPress sucks? Like why don't you use this technology or Ruby on Rails or this framework
Mm,
or something like that, which is technically much more advanced. Like WordPress is actually technically it's garbage because it's made with like PHP.
okay.
and it's open source, so it's like it's really buggy and stuff like that. But like I had to explain to him, yeah, I understand all of that, but when we deliver a website to the client, number one, they have to be able to quickly hire freelancers and people in their own team to fix stuff. And there's a lot of WordPress developers out there because it's the most widely used platform. So you can easily find a cheap WordPress developer, whereas in to find a specialist who does this, it's going to be much more expensive, right?
Yeah.
And number two, most problems in WordPress has already been done. So when you Google like WordPress this, like you'll find an answer quickly on Google. Whereas when you're using like a smaller technology, it's much harder to find an answer.
That's true.
So I have to explain things like that. Then he'll be like, "Oh yeah, I never thought of it that way."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or something like
absolutely. I tell people, I said, look, I could give you a camera, but if you don't know how to use it, we don't take the same pictures. I do this every day.
that. Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So that's what I meant by
Yeah.
storytelling. It sounds like you can probably use storytelling a lot in your work.
So, but I guess the thing that I'm trying to solve is trying to develop myself, but probably develop some, I say some, but kind of one, just share what I learned, but then also kind of make some kind of profit from it at some point in time. Again, it stuck with me. Get paid to play. So
You don't feel like you're doing that right now
I feel like I'm trying to discover
at
what
your
it is
job?
because I feel like because I did too many things, I have too many like
No, no. I mean at your job right now. Your
hmm,
9 to 5 job.
small doses. When I'm not like when they're not like wanting things like since like from last year. I'm like, excuse me, you just told me this yesterday.
But that's gonna when you were running your studio. Did you feel that way at some point? Like for me,
Mm,
it doesn't matter what I do.
yeah.
Like once I've been doing it for a year,
No,
it gets tedious.
no. It never gets tedious with our job because we have to deal with constantly new things, and we have to figure out. There's a lot of problem solving as how to like make things fit and this kind of stuff. There's a problem solving component. They always talk about architecture being the the combination of art, science, and wow, I forgot my stuff.
Business.
Yeah, art, science. Something like this. Yeah. So there's we wear a certain kind of hat that almost isn't quantifiable, but it's quantifiable, and a lot of people don't understand what we do. But I enjoy the problem solving aspect. Maybe not for my client because I'm not the head designer, but definitely for myself. Like, how do I make this easier?
So when you think of like pay to um, get paid to play, you don't think of what you're doing day to day as play,
Mm,
for instance.
not so much. Not so much. And I don't know.
Why
I don't
not?
know if it's the technology too, because when I use the computer to do drawing, is not the same thing when I pick up a pen and do it. When I pick up a pen, I just dove into the depths of my imagination. When I'm like moving a line back and forth on the computer,
Hmm.
like I feel disconnected from what I'm actually doing, and so you kind of feel like a CAD monkey, as they sometimes say. So someone gives you
But is that the industry norm? Like everyone.
Um, at the lower levels, and then when you get higher, it's a little bit less. Actually, as a matter of fact, you're just trying to get a bit faster so that you could deal with other things because people
Got
need
it.
because they become legal documents after a while.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so there's
Got it.
not that much fun when there's like a lot of
It's like a technical drawing. Yeah.
pretty much, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like the responsibility and scary part.
So you think that like once you get to that level where you are making decisions and things like that, then it becomes more like play.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Got
Even
it.
though I could play along the way.
Okay. For me, like I had the realization that because I've been through this a few times, right, with
Mm,
design. I went through a lot of different things, and it actually really held me back in my career
yeah.
because I didn't just focus on one thing and just like if I just focused on one thing for the last 20 years, I would I would have moved along a lot more. But because like I got
I
into
thought
filmmaking,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I got into filmmaking, I got into design, and then I got into coding,
Yeah.
and then I got into. So I did apply all of that in within my business because like when you're running a digital agency, like all of those things do apply. But it did. I think it did slow me down. And what I realized is that every time I tried a new skill,
Mm-hmm.
it was exciting, but at some point,
Mm-hmm.
it did become like I just don't. I don't like because even the things that you find tedious right now, that like or
Yeah. Yeah.
the stuff that you don't think of as play. I bet you there was a point in your life when you thought of that as play.
Yeah. What's that? That's a good question.
Would you say? Because like what
Mm,
for me, when I first started my job, I didn't care if I'm designing email templates. Like just sitting in a meeting with the client was fun.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? Like every little thing I did was
yeah.
fun, but
You know what?
I really had. Yeah.
No,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was about to say, to be honest, when I went back home recently and I saw drawings that I did before and drawings that I've done recently, and it's like, wow. It's just so,
It's always like that.
yeah, I was very proud of myself. I was just like, oh my God, this guy, who is this guy? Um,
Oh, you mean like the old one was better?
no, the new stuff, what I'm doing now, the stuff that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
care not
yeah.
to
Of
like
course,
about
yeah,
all like I look at the
yeah,
stuff I did before and it looked like I was drawing Tetris, but now I'm like, designing the
yeah.
DNA of a plant. That's how it
Yeah.
feels. And I'm proud of myself in those moments. Don't get me wrong, you know. But those I do kind of feel like I don't know. It's like I have to look at the little things.
Yeah, I really needed to come to terms with falling in love with every aspect of my job
Yeah.
because no matter what job I had, no matter how like a lot of designers look at me right now and they think that because I'm designing this amazing website for Jay Shetty, there's all this with the animation and things for like Darman's website and all of that.
Yeah.
Or even back then, we did like crazy websites for Swell Bottle, and like with all these like crazy and like we were always ahead of the curve, right?
Mm.
And people see us, and they think that like Sun's life must be amazing because he's working on all these like creative projects and like great clients and things like that. But it's not like that at all. Actually, like that is a very small part of like when I'm able to come like because I can come up with that idea and it takes 1 or 2 days, right?
Mm.
But actually executing that and making it come to life is a lot of headache. It's a lot of bug fixing and QA and like a lot of
Yeah.
like
I-
going back and forth with clients, going back and forth with designers, getting them to accept it. Like it's like pulling teeth, right?
yeah.
And that's not even including parts like that client that's letting me do all of that work,
Mm.
they're not paying me a lot because in our work it's 1 or 2 things. Like either they're going to give you some creative control, but it's going to be a low budget project, or they just want to just want me to do what they want, like what they want. Like so, I'm just the hands
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
their idea, and those are the high paying clients.
Uh,
Do you understand what I mean?
yeah.
So, not to mention, 80% of our projects are actually boring as fuck projects, where we're just building this boring as thing for a hospital
Yeah.
that nobody's ever gonna see,
No.
but it's paying our bills, right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't think a lot of people realize that, like, no, my job is not that glamorous, right? And that's the thing. When I realized that, I'm like, okay, I need to somehow find a way to make every aspect of even that 80% of my job that I hate, I have to find a way to make that fun. Right?
And that's kind of like I was just like, how do I make this thing fun? And it's like little challenges I got to make for myself, or time runs, or just kind of like, how quickly can I get this done? Or like, how can I get ahead of my boss and be like, before he asks me, I'm like, haha, right here, you know.
Yeah,
And it's like these like
exactly.
little games and stuff that I play with myself that help me get through it. If I have to be honest, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's actually what I had to do. Is for those most of those projects,
mhm.
my goal, my intention, my goal has changed from making the most badass website
Yeah.
to making this client as happy as he can be. Like putting the biggest smile on that client's face became my goal.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So actually exactly what I did. Like I would do things like, before they even ask, or I would do things like, I would surprise them sometimes.
And I mean, but that's like it's like that's the secret sauce I feel that life is missing sometimes. It's just these little sparks of joy that comes from like helping someone and seeing that smile on their face, and you know. So
Yeah.
I mean, I get enjoyment out of those things, you know, and like a person didn't, like you said, didn't think about it, and then you kind of
Hmm.
like present it, and it's just like, or like even if someone said, "Hey, we wanted this cabinet in the kitchen," and I know that maybe their kid, they have a kid, and you probably have like a little portion of the cabinet that probably holds the toys or something like this, and it's something that they didn't think about. They just like, oh, they're just gonna throw some things in there. Like it's like these like little details, and then when you tell them like, oh, I didn't even think about that, and it's just like, yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that to me is the cool thing about architecture. And it's not, yeah, that's the cool thing. And it's permanent. They live in it. They can talk about it. They can tell their friends when they bring them over, and they're comfortable because
Yeah.
a home is supposed to be like a custom suit. It's supposed to be an extension of you. It's supposed to be that thing for you. And I mean, that's how I feel about it. Like,
I I guess there's like part of the job that's also educating too, right? Like you're educating the client or something like that,
yeah,
which is like the same thing for my job.
yeah,
I even like got to a point where I enjoyed the commuting,
mm,
because like New York City commuting is like hell, right? Like you do it every day. Like after a while, it's like, especially like when it's like freezing outside and you just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
walk through the slush to the subway, or when it's like so hot and you have to go underground and they're hot. But like last time I went to New York, I was just like walking around the city during rush hour,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I kind of miss the commute. Like I do you understand? Like I don't know.
Yes,
I don't know if anybody would understand this, but New York City has such an energy
it does.
that even the commuting
My
could be interesting.
my parents came during Memorial, and again, they're from the island. They move at a certain pace, but the energy that they got from just being a part of the system, I've never seen them step so quick in my life. They would just like hopping this and hopping that, and their eyes were big, and I'm like, yeah, it's the city. Even that,
Yeah,
even that homeless person or the garbage over here, like you need
it's
this.
interesting.
They say, "Oh, these are talking points." Okay, this is what we talk about now.
Yeah, no, no, I really believe that, because, and even the weather changes, right? Because in New York, like
Mm.
the four seasons are like when you're in New York in the summer, it's like a different place than when you're in New York in
Oh
the
yeah,
winter. It's almost
100%, 100%,
Yeah.
120.
So even that energy I love. Like around Christmas time, you see all the Christmas lights around, and like that feeling. Like when fall, it's like going back to school time. The leaves starting to fall.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I loved all of that.
Really, the night markets, the events, and
Yeah, exactly. The holiday market, or yeah.
so good, so good. Oh yeah. No, so I mean, this is my story.
So I guess, so. What would you say? It sounds like you're still kind of holding on to that get paid to play thing.
I say, but you know what? I say that because I think I thrive in that area. I think I'm more useful in that area. I've seen
What area?
in the area of like when I'm having fun or an idea or something like this, I feel like I've been more useful to a group of people. because that means not because how I play is I play because I care. And when I care, I feel like I really like bring I really think of a win-win, because you can't play by
But do you feel like you
yourself.
and you don't feel like you can do that you're doing that in your current job? You don't have that same feel, same
No,
same.
I don't know if it's the culture. It's a bit different. Everyone's like this is the first place I've ever been to that I actually put in the hours that they say. You know, when they say, "Oh, you'll
Hmm.
work like 2.5 hours," like that's like the amount of work that. No, no, I work 6.5 proper hours looking at my
Hmm.
computer, head down, and so you don't really get to like do the water cooler talks or whatever, or like people are talking on Slack.
But that's what I mean. That 6.5 hour of doing the work has to be play.
I gotta
Do you
find a
understand what I
way.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
no,
I gotta find a way. No, but you know something?
no. I
Huh?
maybe it shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't have to find a way. Maybe if there's already something that you feel that way about, like, is there something else that you could be doing for 6.5 hours and you feel like you were playing the whole time? You don't have to try to make it into a play. Like it's automatically just is.
um.
Like when you were, for example, like when you were training clients, like in that fitness studio,
Mhm.
did if you were there working for 6.5 hours, would that have felt like play to you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Even just being around it. Even if I'm not doing anything, just watching people like go through it and letting my music playing around and just bouncing and watching people, and then like, helping someone correct their form, help
Yeah.
motivate someone.
What about like the job that job that you had right before that? You said
When I
you were
was
working at that
doing when
Swedish
I was
company.
doing that, that was interesting in terms of just even talking to people, because I never really was good
Yeah.
at communication like that. Still, I'm still like a four, and just
Also, do you? It sounds like you enjoy more working with people.
and that's weird because I really don't I didn't think so, because I get very frustrated because I'm one of these people that does so many things alone because I've always been alone that
Are you an introvert or extrovert, or
I,
do you
f-
know?
oof, I feel like I learned to be an extrovert. So I'm an introvert. I think I'm an introvert.
Got it. Okay.
Because I told you the story before. I was an only child, so I played with myself. I used to have imaginary friends, all this stupidness. But I was also the elder child in the different families, so I had the responsibility of taking care of people that didn't live with me.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So it's
Got
just
it.
like all the responsibility fell on me to be kind of like decent. And
Let me ask you something. Do you enjoy working with clients, like talking to clients and interacting with
yeah,
clients? And
we could shoot the wind and deal with stuff, and yeah, I don't mind doing that stuff.
you find that more enjoyable than like sitting and working at your desk?
Yeah, because you know why? After I do my drawings and then I come back and put in so much like love and passion into it, and then show it to them, and then they'd be like, "Oh, can you move this
Yeah.
wall or something like this?" I'll oof. I guess I can, and then I just walk away. I won't say anything.
Ah.
So
Also, there are parts of like working with clients that you dread, like that you don't enjoy.
yeah, yeah. I don't think you'll enjoy
Okay.
everything. And we have like 5 phases. We have schematic design, construction documents, CA, and we have pre-design. The stuff at the beginning is fun. This is like you're
Oh yeah.
crafting someone's story with a building or an environment.
Hmm.
This is the fun stuff, like what we're doing now.
But that's how it is in all creative
I
work.
know,
You
I
know
know.
that because they say the first 20%, the first 80% takes 20% of the time, and the last 20% takes 80% of the time
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
those are the little tiny details that you don't really see a big change,
yeah, yeah.
but it still requires a lot of hours, right? Like even in writing, you can write a whole thing in like 20% of the time, but then going back and keep editing, that's the not fun part, right?
I've
Like
learned I've learned that from you, but I've definitely learned the best part of rewriting is just like, actually, this makes more sense, and this is like, actually, it's not fun.
Oh, you would enjoy that part. Yeah.
No, no, it's, I don't know how to really say it. You know what? Again, if I do it by hand, it's fun because
Mm,
I'm like a tectonic learner and then visual. So I need to feel and touch
got it.
things.
Got it.
I don't mind doing whatever you put in front of me, but I definitely think with my
Got it.
hands.
I don't think you're analytical then.
Damn.
I feel like.
I know. I guess maybe I learned through
Yeah.
enough. Anyway.
Maybe you are analytical because you grew up in that environment, but maybe naturally you're more of a like a creative thinker. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. 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 So maybe
Like
unlearning and
do you find it more easier to like look at visualize stuff and problem solve that way rather than like, you know.
mm, what you mean, like yeah.
Like I know a lot of people that they need to put everything on the board. Like whenever they're doing some like their problem solving or something like they have to like put it on the board and visualize and like even like the site map they have like I never have to do that for me. I can just whip out a Word document and just make bullet points. I could do like that.
Nah, I need mess. I need a collage. I'm like, not this, not that, and then it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely, I need.
You're like the opposite of me actually maybe. Cuz like I always wanted to be creative, but I'm naturally not. But it sounds like you're naturally creative, but you were born in a you you were like taught to be analytical or something like
What,
that.
you trying to tell me I'm left-handed and I didn't know?
Left brain.
It might be something like this, but I've always been.
But here's what I think just to kind of like give you my thoughts on what I'm
Yes.
hearing just from your whole story. It sounds like the part of your life where you enjoy the most is are those 4 years in China when you were running your gym.
Yeah, it's just myself.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's feel good fitness. Just feel good.
Yeah, and just like maybe it's like the whole working with clients. Maybe it's like part of it is like building your own thing. Maybe the community
Hmm.
and all of that, and also like probably there's probably something to it about getting validated, like getting recognized for it, right? Like people actually validating because when you're growing and people are referring new clients and things like that,
Yeah.
that's validation that you're doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, yeah. I mean, to me, that seems like a little bit of hint right there. So maybe I don't know if you're in like a fitness community in New York or something like that, but
Mhm.
maybe the thing to do is like get into some sort of like whether it's like you know
Yeah,
fitness.
I've also kind of like certain things. You just, I think you, if it's work, it's work. You just have to do it. Like it. Don't complain about it, this and stuff. It actually might waste too much energy to think about it. So, yeah, I mean, you have so many other things you got to do. And so it's just one of those things where it's just like, um, even though it's the thing that I'm pursuing, it's also the thing that I was experiencing outside of the company that I had to deal with at the same time. That was just very uncomfortable
you mean
when I
you mean the
first came to
fitness
New York. When
company?
I first came to New York,
Can you give me an example?
well, I think
Also, you think you can have just as much fulfillment and fun in your job if it was like under different circumstances. Like it's not the work, it's not the architecture that you think is
yes,
the problem. Is
and I had to kind of create that, or create it because I
hmm
just a new environment, new pace, new way of talking. The language was different in terms of it was just all different, and so I didn't have like the
hmm
same guardrails that kind of held me together, and so I just felt like I was spread thin, and I didn't really have like anything that said, "Oh, I'm here," and I do this and that. It was just like it's almost kind of like figuring yourself.
Oh, you think you were like doing too much?
Yeah, for sure. Because I didn't know what I did not want to do, or what I wanted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was intimidating too. For sure, it was definitely intimidating. Um,
Like when you first moved to New York?
First moved to New York, and also was intimidating just the job itself because what it required. It just required me to know things that I just didn't have, and I think that it was just like
Got it.
this just takes time.
Is that because you just been away from it for so long,
Yes,
or
yes, I was very much so out of practice.
got
Like
it?
basic things, I was like, "What's that again?" And he verbally told me like, "It's just frustrating that." I'm like, "Ah, it's just
Uh,
frustrating that I have to tell you these basic things." And I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you, brother. But I couldn't say anything, as my boss. But
yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
people telling you these things, and they're on a different time, and um, obviously I'm appreciative because they're giving me a job, so I can't really bite the hand that feeds me, kind of thing. It's like we were kind of in it together, but it's just a little bit more frustrating for him, and it's a little bit more fearful for me. And literally, I think I told you, just like, dang, am I going to get fired? And it's just like the weight of that kind of that feeling.
How do you feel now?
I feel a bit better because I kind of recognized some of the patterns, and I've learned, I've gotten some experience, and I went on both sides where I was like fearful, and then I was like fearless, and now I'm like fair. Some things are gonna fall. This is what I can control.
So something interesting is like when I was telling you about like maybe why don't you go join like a, let's say, a running club or some sort of fitness club or something like that, right? Like that's when you mentioned that, like, sometimes it's just a job is a job, right?
Hmm.
Like why did you say that? I'm curious.
Um, I said that because I saw an old pattern before I went to
Mhm.
China, where I put all of my eggs and my motivations and everything in the basket of like, this is the be all and end all. When I have
Like
this
the
thing,
passion, yeah,
this will
yeah.
complete me. This is when I'll
Mm.
bloom. And I kind of recognized that I was falling into that pattern, and I said, no, this is just a job. I won't force this thing to
Okay,
be more than what it actually is.
got it.
And
And so you think that your real passion is somewhere else. That,
maybe, maybe,
and is that something you're like looking to explore?
sure, yeah,
Yeah. No, that's exactly why I said,
yeah,
I think you should join, like, you should try to get in the fitness community in New York,
hmm,
because there's a huge fitness community in New York.
hmm,
And I wouldn't be surprised, because I've been in a lot of these fitness community, and I've seen businesses around it too.
yeah,
And a lot of it has nothing to do with fitness or technique or that, it's like almost everything has to do with the community, the people,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if I go to a gym or if I go to like a Soul Cycle, it's like people will go sign up for a certain
mhm,
time slot just for that instructor, just so that they can learn from
yeah,
that
yeah,
specific
yeah.
instructor, right? And yoga is the same thing. Like some some classes will be packed because of the instructor, whereas in other classes will be empty because of the instructor, right?
Yes,
So
I.
the fact that you were, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just wondering, like, it. I know full well that I could go into something else, and I could enjoy myself and everything else. But I'm wondering, is there also a path in the thing that actually pays my bills? That
Well, I mean, that's the hard part, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
because
kind of like where.
that that's how
Huh?
that's how I was when I first started. I didn't have money. I had a job. I had a 9 to 5 job,
Yeah, yeah,
and I was basically almost living like paycheck to paycheck when I started freelancing. So it was tough because
yeah.
I I basically had to work 2 jobs for like a year,
Yeah.
right? to get it off the
Oh
ground.
yeah, that's true.
So I mean, obviously there is going to be that pain period where you're probably like, maybe you're like working your 9 to 5 job, and afterwards you're like, you're teaching a class for free or something like that, one
Or
class
storytelling.
or two yeah, or whatever it is, like whether it's coaching or mentoring or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's, to me it sounds like, because the fact that you were able to do that in China, like forget the business side, forget the all the other, like, getting burnt out and all of that, right? Imagine you were just working as a trainer only, and like, let's say somebody else was taking care of all the business side and you were just working there as a trainer, and you were just building community and things like that, right?
Mm.
It sounds like you were good at that, because otherwise I don't think it would have grown. And not to mention, you met your wife there, right? So obviously people are resonating with you, people are drawn to you for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you should test that out, even if it's like, yeah, even if it's just like coaching someone, mentoring someone, or teaching a small class or something
Mm.
like that. You should explore where that goes, because maybe that can turn into something eventually.
Yeah. I've always kind of been scared of going down that path per se. Um, two reasons. In one moment, I had
You mean like a side hustle kind of path?
side hustle outside of what I do, and I feel I'm at that point where less is more, and I'm trying to do it with like I
I
feel like
feel like
I'll
is it because of the burnout?
not so much about the burnout. It's I left like I don't want to whatever I do. I feel like sometimes I get really consumed. Like I could be very obsessive. Um,
Got it. Oh, so you feel that if you start doing that, you're gonna start like
I'll
lacking in this. You're not gonna care about your job as much or something like that.
oh yeah, and that would not be good.
Yeah.
So
About that, I think that's something that you're gonna have to learn to deal with, though,
I mean,
because I'm like that too. Like I get like, when I work on one project and I'm consumed with it, like I kind of put all of this on the back burner or something like that. But
there was a random time I just like I remember just I remember just like making a website once, and it's just like I spent 3 hours one night. I know I didn't need to do it, and I did it, and it was just like this is awesome. I was able to do it.
because you were like in the zone, you were in the flow
I
state.
was in such a flow. Oh, son, you have no idea.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
beautiful.
No, that's how I
It's
get.
beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was delicious almost. Um, but I guess maybe yeah. Like I
I mean, but do you really want to live life like not having that? Also,
well, it's not that. I think I'm getting that. I just wish I could. I'm trying to. I think I'm still exploring how to do it with what I'm doing now. I do. I really do like learning. At the end of the day, the common denominator is that I like learning, but I also like learning with other people. Because when you're by yourself, you're always right.
so let me ask you this: like, what would be your dream job?
Well, that's the thing. It wouldn't be a job.
Yeah. So, what would be that dream thing? Like, if you can do, let's say money wasn't a factor at all, right? And we live in a society where everything is free. Okay,
Everything.
some utopian society where everything was free. What would you be doing?
Hmm. I think I would be island hopping and a bunch of eco-friendly fitness retreats where we talk, laugh, and have a bunch of fun. And it's very
Yeah,
seasonal. And it's very seasonal.
I feel like you're right now. you there is something else
Hmm?
that you're gonna want to pursue, even like whether it's
Yes.
not now or 5 years from now or
Yeah.
10 years from now. Like that thing is always going to be on the back of your mind, in my opinion.
Mm,
And it's just it's I think it's actually much easier for you to start setting up the stepping stones to get there now,
yeah.
so that even if it does happen, like let's say 2 years from now or 5 years from now or something like that,
Yeah.
that you know what I mean. But if you don't right now, 2 years later, 5 years later, you're still gonna have to start from scratch. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's why
So,
I was very open to, I guess, the hot seat. Um,
mhm.
like I don't mind splitting apart or, whatever I'm thinking, or like, hey, maybe this is what it is.
Yeah,
So I,
and that it's always hard. Like I think when you're starting something from scratch, like especially like as a high side hustle, I think it's so hard. It's the reason why almost everyone I know. I'm trying to think. How many people do I know who started a side hustle? Do I personally know that started a side hustle and succeed? Like I think nobody. Like that's how I know so many people who started a side hustle,
yeah.
but they usually give up, right? Because like I feel like in today's society, like we're so soft.
Mm,
we're so we're so soft that you know we don't understand what hard work really means.
mm,
Do you understand what I mean?
mm.
And for me, when I got my business off the ground, um, as a side hustle, it literally I had to. It didn't. Nothing happened until I started thinking of it as I have two different jobs. I have to go to work.
Yeah.
I have to come home. I literally have to come sit at my desk and like I'm still fully dressed. Like I treated it like a second job,
Yeah.
like a second 9 to 5 job, right? And that's the only way I was able to get it off the ground.
Yeah. My parents too.
So
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that, but then like I think it's worth it once you go through that. If that can kind of be the seed that
And
gets you to the next
I
step.
agree with you on that. I think my parents did something very similar because they didn't get into construction because they liked construction. As a matter of fact, they just like doing a good job, no matter what it is. I'm like, okay. They don't really think about what.
You know what? I actually think they're very wise though, because I think if all of us, every human on earth,
Yeah,
this is what I strongly believe.
yeah,
If we had the mentality like your parents, where we're not trying to chase some dream or some passion, right? Like no matter what it is, it can be as simple as washing the dishes.
yeah. They just,
Like if we put the passion in doing a good job, being proud of our work, I actually think we can be really passionate about it.
yeah, like because you know how they got into construction. My dad didn't. My dad realized that his dad was taxing him too much money for being in the house. And he said, "You know what? I got to get out here, man." Because he bought an air condition, and then he said, I got an air condition. There was the only air condition in the house. And then his dad came in and said, "Yeah, so the light bill is a bit high, so maybe you shouldn't turn that on." And my dad was just like, "No way, no way." Immediately, he decided to say, "I need my own place." So he decided to get start building. And so on the side, he went to work, and then afterwards, he would get his brothers and stuff for this. And that's literally how he literally started to learn how to build his own building so that he could not live home and have me and my mom to
Mm-hmm.
live there. And basically, that's how they got into construction business, because then someone that said, "Hey, could you build this for me?" And so he said, "What, extra money? Sure, why not?" And then it just built and built, and now they have this reputable company.
And you,
And I feel like,
do you think he enjoyed that?
huh?
Do you think he enjoyed doing that?
Like I said, he doesn't care what he does. He just want to make sure he just does a good job, and that's it. And he just
And I
enjoys
really do
learning,
believe
and
that.
like,
Yeah.
hey, and I think he enjoys absorbing people's knowledge, and then at the same time bringing it to his repertoire if they fall short. And then it helps him be able to learn and do another product. And then like he just likes learning himself. And my mom is the one who like ties it all together. But then she's right
Yeah.
there learning too, because oh my gosh, she's prideful. I think it's maybe being a British colony, and a lot of pride is a part of this too. But Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, no, I really do believe that because like if you watch that show Dirty Jobs,
Yeah,
or like if you watch Dirty Jobs, like most of those people are like multimillionaires,
yeah,
right? And their job is to like basically unclog toilets or like it's like, but it's they started like that and then they built a business around it, whether it's like garbage truck company or whatever it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
But they get so into it.
Yeah,
They're really passionate about their
they have a
business. You know what I
show.
mean?
So,
And I think it's the pride. Like there's something about being proud of doing a good job
yes, and
that makes you happy. You know?
yeah. So I think that's literally what I'm trying to. What makes me proud to do this thing, and then like I said, on the surface, I think yes, I say I want to get paid to play, but I think it's also just like having pride to do this work and like, hey,
Maybe that
like $1 in.
maybe that
Huh?
that phrase "get paid to play" was maybe that's you know actually like not a blessing but a curse because I, I actually what I actually do believe that about what's going on right now, right? Because
Hmm.
back then, you know, rewind back to the 90s, right? Like nobody was looking for like, oh, I need to find that one. I'm gonna build my own app and like I'm gonna start a podcast, and nobody was saying that, right? Everybody was content with getting a job after their college, doing a good job, getting promoted, and
Yeah.
whatever. However, they're like everybody was content with that, and that nobody was depressed. Like everybody was happy, and all of a sudden now
Mm.
ever since Steve Jobs said, ever since Steve Jobs made that commencement speech where he said, like, do what you love and you never have to work a day in your life, right? And then now all of these, like, now there's millions of them on YouTube and Instagram that are talking about
Yeah.
like follow your passion. Just if you like all these things, like all these crypto bros and all this like 23-year-olds making like driving Ferraris and that are
Uh,
just pumping this message into the youth of America or the youth of the world,
yeah.
I actually think is making people miserable
I
because
agree.
we have this dream that okay, there's some passion or some dream job or some life over here
Yeah,
that I might never get, right?
it's true.
But that's just chasing a pipe dream and even if you do get it, like a lot of people when they get it, I think they realize it wasn't all it was hyped up to. Like they're still miserable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like
I actually think your parents got it right.
no, they had to. No, they did. They did, and it's almost annoying.
I bet you they're happy as fuck.
Like I feel like right now, I mean, now speaking to you, I feel me, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the next paths are just focus on solving your own problems, I guess, and put it out in the world, and it
Yeah.
might help.
I
It
mean,
might
that's
help
my.
someone. And honestly, if it take off, like you always say, I mean, the market would tell you if they want more of it or not. And yeah, just stack, build your mountain almost.
Yeah. I mean, that's my entire life philosophy is just take it one step at a time. Like, I don't. Whenever I think about the future, I actually get miserable. So, what I really have to do is I just have to.
Take it.
Somebody said this, like, yeah, just do a good job in whatever's on your desk, right? So, whatever's in front of you right now, like do a good job. And every day, 10 times a day, I have to remind myself whenever I start thinking about like, oh, I'll be great at night out, like if we build this, if we have this process where people can do this and like in the community, whenever I start doing that,
Yeah.
that actually stresses the shit out of me. But when I just focus on going to that small group leader meeting, going to that Monday master class, and just like taking one step at a time. What can I do the best job right now? If I'm reading somebody's story, how can I leave the best feedback for this person right now?
Mhm.
If I'm just focused on the day-to-day tasks,
Yeah.
actually before I know it, like let's say 3 months passed by, like it's kind of like you're drawing, and then you went back and you looked at your old drawings, like holy shit, like this is how far I've come.
Yeah.
and and that kind of progress you can't really see with your eyes.
No,
You know what I mean?
it's very true. So many lessons.
But dude, I feel for you because I'm the same way, and I literally have to remind myself 10 times a day, like son, like don't worry about all of that future problems, like just focus on
I,
fixing whatever is in front of me now,
I, I feel like I've said this to someone too. I don't know why I don't take my own advice. They were just like, oh, I'm thinking about this and that. I said, but you already know what you want for the future. Why you just don't focus on what you have in front of you? You know, you just have to just.
yeah,
It's very similar. Just like
take the
as
next step.
you'll get there. Like, that's to me, that's really
Yeah.
what enjoying the process is all about.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And you know what else? Like whenever I do that, when I do start thinking about that, and usually what happens when I do that is when I come across a YouTube video, right, where somebody's talking about, oh, this is how I built a membership that that generates $10 million a year or something like that.
Yeah.
It's when I see those things that then I was like, maybe I should do that or something like that, and that actually makes me so unhappy because
I'm
it's
I'm like unsubscribing and I'm going through all of my saves and like just deleting things. Like I said,
that's what I did.
really like right now it's just like less is more. Seriously. Just like
Yeah.
hey, so let me ask you
Like
this.
and it's almost instant. Like whenever I catch myself doing that, I'm like, oh wait a minute, no, I just need to focus on now.
Yeah.
And then when I bring it back to the present moment, I actually feel so much better instantly. Like all that anxiety goes away. I'm just like go out in my balcony, drink my coffee, and just like
don't you feel
enjoying
don't you feel like this energy just takes up so much space?
Yeah, and it's the internet.
So much space.
It's social media that's doing it.
It's so much.
Just think about this, right? Like, imagine you went away to upstate somewhere in a cabin for a week without any internet access. Like, you wouldn't be thinking about any of that.
Nah.
Like, you would actually probably be super happy.
It's I recently went away and I came back and I've definitely noticed something different. And it's like all of the things I've felt before, whatever. I don't know what it is, but the things I can't control or the things that I'm thinking about that's far away, whatever, I give that shit 6 feet, buddy. 6 feet. So I can see it. I understand it. I just don't acknowledge it. 6 feet. Just 6 feet. You don't no, 6 feet. And I feel so calm and it's weird because I feel like I have so much space for the right energy. And I think maybe that's how come I wanted to do the hot seat. It's just kind of like, hey, I really want to make sure what I put in makes sense. Unbiased opinion. Because I know you're gonna give.
And I also think that whenever I do that, it gives me the anxiety. That's when all my imposter syndrome, like that's when I lose all of my mojo. That's when I start second guessing everything I say. Like, you know what I mean? And then that energy comes off that way. Even like when I go in Sunday service, I'm worried about all that.
Yeah,
it comes off that way in meetings or whatever it is, and then people can sense that, and that confirms that bias. So like now it's like a vicious cycle.
It's so vicious. But my dad talks about like I've always talked about this about he always brings up Einstein with energy can't be created or destroyed, and it's kind of like if it doesn't serve you, like just move it and let something else come in. And I just feel the same way when being social media, this and that, and like the energy just boils up, and I'm just like, this is not doing anything for me. It's so heavy, but why am I carrying someone else's stuff? Unless I want to, But it's almost uninvited. It's like pass.
Yeah.
So like,
we should all be listening to your dad.
I
see. That's what I was saying about how like the older generation actually are much wiser It's just that we think that the younger generation, because of the internet and all of that, they're more knowledgeable, right? They have more knowledge, but they don't have wisdom.
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad. It's really so bad. And I think I've been getting caught up in it too. You know?
Yeah, no, every day
Yeah.
for me, every day.
It's it's kind of like I didn't know what Riz was and this and that, and it's just like, do I need to know that though? I'm at the point where I'm a remix now. My generation is a remix of the generation
Mm.
now. It's crazy. I'm
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
point, and I accept it. I accept it. It's all good.
yeah. No, I definitely I can relate, and it's the reason why for me it's a constant reminder, constant battle. So it's like I guess I just want to tell you that like you're not alone, right? And that like I think we're all going through that. And if anybody says no,
They're
I'm
lying.
I'm happy 24/7, I'm confident all the time, like I think it's bullshit, right?
Mm.
Like
I feel like if I just thinking about like if I wanted to do a service or a product or whatever, um, I think I would keep it really super simple, probably like what you're doing now, and it's just like back to basics. This what I learned. This is what my dad said. I think this makes sense. What do
yeah,
you think? And like something very super.
you know how I don't know if you were around when I first started, but
Yeah,
like the way this whole Night Owl Nation evolved
yeah,
is just by me. Whenever I got on a Zoom call with anyone
mm,
when COVID started, I recorded everything.
yeah,
Like I have my Zoom on auto record.
mm,
So if I'm talking to like an intern, right? Or I'm talking to like a client or anyone, even my friends,
yeah,
it's being recorded. And then I would just take clips from there and just start post. So what I did was like I just took all of my life lessons that
mm.
I've learned and then I just started sharing them
Okay,
on the internet, on
that's a
Instagram,
good
right?
first step.
And then yeah, and that got to a point where somebody was like, "Son, like, can you teach me this, or can I?" Oh, actually, the craziest thing was like 2 3 months into it. Like at that time, I'm basically a web designer, right? Because I'm an agency owner. I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
marketing and things like that. And some woman from California DM me and says, "Son, do you do any coaching, like life coaching?"
yeah. Mm.
And at the time, I didn't know what life coach was, right? So I was like, sure. And then I jumped on the call with her, and I just basically had a hour-long conversation with her, and it was amazing. And like she was like, she found it really helpful,
That's
and you know what I mean.
yeah.
So it happened like that, little by little by little. And at some point, I think when even last year when I first started, all I did was I just sent out a thing to my all of my followers and say, hey, if you want to come Sunday, just join this Zoom call. And then like 100 people showed up, right?
Nice.
And then that's how it started. And then at some point, I started charging money for it. And.
That might be the way forward. It may be. It
Yeah, it
doesn't hurt.
really, really,
It
really
doesn't hurt.
happened organically.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
hurt. Right.
And I feel like I've naturally been like I'm sure because I can tell just by the way you lead your small group and things like that. You're probably naturally already doing that with people, right? Like
No,
I
people have, I don't know why, but people feel the need to be vulnerable with me. Like, I feel like maybe I create that space that,
Mhm.
hey, drop. I don't tell them to. It ain't like I have a sign. But they just kind of naturally, you know, let it out.
Yeah, I think there's certain people that are just like that.
Yeah.
So maybe you're naturally like
A teddy bear.
a coach or mentor or something like that. So I mean I did that with all my employees.
Mm.
So I do that with like people, like other friends that I know that are like younger than me. They always come to me for advice. So yeah, I mean, I think that's how it starts.
My introvert side is not like this though. He's a dick. He's he is
What?
not he is not nice. That guy is not nice. He's not nice. He's very passionate about what he does. He's a tyrant. It's like it has to be this way. And but if I don't have my hands on it, it's all good. I'm Mr. Rogers. It's all good.
Oh, I see what you
Yeah,
mean. So the thing that like so the work that you're I think I completely get it.
yeah,
It's because there are certain things that I feel like this is my responsibilities, therefore I need to control this.
yes.
It's whenever I feel like I need to control something.
Mm,
See, like when I jump on a coaching call, it's completely different than when I work with a long term project client.
yeah,
Because I feel like when I work with a client who's hiring me to do their website and marketing message,
yeah.
I have a responsibility to make sure that that converts and generates revenue and all of that.
Exactly.
So I'm a dick, right? But then, so like I won't let little things go. I'm like, oh no, that we can't do it like that because of that's gonna cause problem down the like here and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I'll point it out. But when I'm doing a coaching call, like in the back of my mind, like I might be on a coaching call and then we get off. Like I know that that person's not gonna do half the things that I said, but I don't really care because I feel like I my after that 1 hour, my responsibility ends.
yeah. I
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm so different. So growing up too, my chores. One of my chores was I had to do the yard, and now I'm gonna go to my mother now. She is, she uses words like immaculate and perfection. I needed to.
Also, she's your introvert side.
Here's my introvert side. So it's like I needed 90-90, and so what's happened is when I if I would like go through the house or whatever, if I leave like I didn't cut the grass or whatever, so what would happen is like she would be like, "Didn't you see it?" And I had to develop the spatial and aware, so I see things. So even to this day,
Oh, okay.
if I see anything and maybe like something might be out of order or whatever like this because everything has to be in its place.
Oh, so you don't think you're naturally like that?
I think
Like,
I've developed that to as a part of it. At this point in time, it's just a part of me. And so, like, if I see if
so you
something's
develop perfectionism?
but I ignore it. I ignore it. Because you can't be
Okay.
that way. And I used to get super anal about things when I was growing up because I used to hang out with my mom a lot. My dad's more happy go lucky, which is more probably my natural state. So normally when I see things that are like out of order or whatever, I have to actively tell myself not to act on it or like just let
Mhm.
it be, like just chill.
I wonder if now you got me thinking. I wonder if
I'm
that
like,
type of perfectionism.
huh?
I wonder if that type of perfectionism is a learned skill. Maybe nobody's naturally perfectionist. Maybe it's something that society put on us throughout our life.
I definitely feel that way. It's not, trust me, you leave
Uh,
me to my devices, I'm chilling.
yeah,
However,
yeah.
I have this, I don't even want to call it's like,
Because we tie it to our identity almost. We tie
exactly.
it to our ego. Like, okay, that's a reflection of if I do a bad job on that grass, that's a reflection of me. So therefore, I need to make sure that's perfect or something like
Oh, I
that.
don't want to get yelled at by my
Okay,
mom. What are you
yeah.
talking about? I can hear
No,
it.
no,
She's
but
lovely.
I mean, like
First of
as
all,
you,
she's lovely. She's lovely. It's just that she is definitely like she worked really hard, perfectionist woman, did amazing things, and like this was like a part of what she needed to do to get to that level and stuff like that. It just so happened that I was in the proximity, and it.
no, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Like it's that develops all the way to a point. Because like think about it. Let's say now you got a job,
Mhm.
and then you're known for making perfect lines and just doing everything
Yeah.
perfect, right? Then people are gonna put you in that box. It's like now you built this identity of like, okay, George is like anything we give to George, he's gonna make it perfect,
Yeah.
right? Once you built that reputation, now you have to live up to that
Ugh.
reputation. So as soon as things are not perfect, you're going crazy. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I
So
mean
maybe it's like a developed skill like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
it's a built up. You build these personalities from things, you know what I mean. And so instead of society doing it, it's you kind of like
Because as soon as you were telling me that, I actually felt this. I was like, oh, maybe that's what happened to me. And like I remember when I was young and when I was a kid, I wasn't a perfectionist at all.
Right?
Like I was very like, free willing Bob Dylan, right? So, so yeah,
Hilarious.
I, I think I developed that too.
Yeah, no,
So we should be able to undo it.
yeah, no, it takes. I think over time, the thing that stays around is the thing that stays around. That the energy you have for these things stays around. So I definitely feel like it wanes, especially if I'm doing something new. Now, if something is a part of me, like you said, if you do things over a certain amount of time, you'll be good at it. You don't even think about it as reflex or whatever like this. So
Mm.
that's how come me feeling to switch onto something else is like, personally, I don't know if I have the energy for the perfectionist side that's probably inside of me that wants to like, it has to be like this.
Yeah, and it probably has to do with like that's probably also related to how like the future thinking to not being present,
Yeah.
because when I'm doing that, because I'm worried about something in the future or something
Well,
like that, right?
perfection means that
That's
you already imagine what it'll be in your mind.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
you already know.
So that all of that is imaginary about the future.
Imaginary expectations. Boy, them expectations are kill, boy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's why it's a constant reminder for me that like for me my entire life philosophy is literally like that's why like I think Eckhart Tolle's book really resonated with me where I'm trying to be as present as whatever I'm doing right now. Like for example, right now I'm focused in talking to you.
Hmm.
So all of my energy is on this conversation.
Yeah.
And but whatever I do in front of me, I don't multitask anymore.
Same.
Like I used to be such a big multitasker, but I don't because now I just want to be present and put all of my energy and do this right. Whatever I'm doing right now, I want to do it the best as I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of like the answer, you know? And maybe
Yes.
that's what's going to also lead you to
Because
wherever it's going to lead
I've
you
been
to.
reading the Stoicism and this kind of stuff, and actually, so definitely we come from like going to church and more religious and the spiritual side, and it's very
Mhm.
interesting. What's kept me balanced is like thinking about like God, spirituality. It kind of lets you look outward, outside of yourself, and like, okay, you'll
Mhm.
be able to attain this thing, and there's an aspiration almost. And but then when I look at like stoicism and this kind of stuff, which I've been really into, is kind of like that same thing but within.
Yeah.
And I found that these
Like taking 100% responsibility.
responsibility regardless, and I find that it brings me to like it creates a harmony of like, hey, where
I actually think Stoicism also is because like Stoicism is like whatever happens,
yes,
letting go
yes,
also, right? So trusting the universe that whatever is going to
exactly.
happen is going to
It's just a
happen.
very different way. It's
I'm
very cool.
yeah,
It's very interesting.
yeah.
I like it. It's
No, I like that. Yeah, I actually that's what I liked about religion. Like I'm not like do you guys go to church or?
not yet. I
But
have
for
I have
me,
my version.
what I do like about spirituality is that I think when you're religious, I, I'm not the center of the universe anymore,
Yes,
right? Like,
correct,
and
correct.
you're kind of letting go of some control,
Mm.
and I think that makes you a little bit humble,
It does.
right?
It does.
Whereas in like if I feel that I'm the center of the universe, I'm my own god, then that's where like ego starts building and like you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, we're just a dot of an existence of time, and that's it. And but at the same time, it's like you be the best goddamn dot you ever could be. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like
So you know,
two things.
Ryan Holiday, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
stoicism, yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember a tweet from him, which was like so profound for me. Is he said that uh, the universe is the director, right? But I'm the actor. So like obviously I can't rewrite the script.
Mm,
I have to, but what I can do is I can play my part as best as I can.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So within that, I have full control
Yeah.
and I take full responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
But by worrying about the script and like that's
6 feet, 6 feet,
yeah.
6 feet. Just like that have nothing to do with me. You just got
Yeah,
to do what I
exactly.
got to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're on the same page, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, maybe I hope this conversation helped you kind of like,
yeah.
you know,
Sorry,
as it helped me.
no, for sure. Because, like I said, I only child, elder, this kind of stuff, and I've unfortunately been in a lot of situations where because I overly care when I first begin, everyone kind of gives me that agency. It's weird when you really, really care about other people's things. It robs you of your
Mhm,
identity sometimes. And so that's how come I
mhm,
don't stay in things for too long. But like now I'm in this thing for a very long time. And actually being a night owl for a very long time and actually talking to people and actually expressing myself and putting myself out there and these kind of things. And so actually hearing something that probably goes against what I said, or maybe actually going with it, because when we doing storytelling, we're going deeper than the surface. We're actually trying to ask, what is this person? We're trying to talk to the person's real voice, basically.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're trying to talk to their real.
Without the
A lot
ego,
of
yeah.
people, a
Without
lot of communities don't have that or do that. You know, it isn't about therapy. It's like actually someone trying to talk
except
to you.
church. Maybe not even church
Not
nowadays.
even,
Like,
not even.
yeah,
They all trying to like make you successful,
yeah.
which
Because you
sounds so
can tell
silly,
even
but
from like
it's
w- when you see those like worship teams that are like putting out albums on Spotify and things like that, where like
there's some good mixes now.
it's
Hold
like
on, there's some good mixes. I'm not gonna lie. I feel the
no,
spirit,
no, no. The music is great,
but
but I don't. In my opinion, that's not worship,
yeah,
right? Like that's playing music, you know. Like so, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
And this was a great, deep conversation.
Yeah, no,
I'm I'm glad well, I'm glad you got stuff out of your chest, and this it definitely helped me kind of clarify some things
yeah, no.
in my own.
It helped me to just to like lean into the examples that already been here, and also that other people are there.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes maybe we just need like a reconfirmation of something we already know, or get regrounded on something that we already believe in, or
I
something
think, I
like that.
mean, that could also be ego too. It's just kind of like, God, they've been telling me to do things my whole life, and it's just like I want to be right for once, and it's just like, God damn it, full circle.
Well, you know what I think? I think we are right even when we are wrong. Like what like what let's say my whole life philosophy. So it's been like that for a while now.
Yeah,
Like that. My life philosophy is don't worry about next year. Don't worry about 5 years from now. Don't worry about 10 years from now. Focus on whatever's in front of me at this moment,
yeah,
right? And that I've had that philosophy for a long time now. And every time I get confused or something like that, and I just sit down and I think about it, I think it through. It always comes back to that every time, every single time. It always comes back to that, right?
that's,
So, but the thing is, there was a time in my life when that wasn't my philosophy, right?
yeah,
There was a time in my life where everything is about goal oriented, right? I have to set a like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I think for at that time, I think I was right for me at that time, and I think I needed to go through that for me to be right now. And I think even if I'm wrong right now, I think I need to go through this so that whatever my next phase is, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So whatever is happening to me right now, even if it's wrong,
yeah,
I think it's right for me at this time.
yeah. No, it makes
And I truly believe that.
yeah. You're learning from yourself. You know,
Yeah.
you're earning your lessons to who you are now. So,
Yeah.
so stay here.
Like as much as like all the mistakes that I've made in my life, if you were to say like, you know, like do I want to get rid of that? No, I think all of those mistakes I made were necessary.
It's very true. It's very true. And I wonder what kind, you know, people always act, I've heard this before too. And it's just like, why I wouldn't be the person who I am now. What's the point of changing, you know? Actually,
Yeah.
this thing
I
about
would be a completely different person.
your Lion King example is just kind of like, when he just like hit someone in the nose, just says, "Ow, that hurt." And he just like, it doesn't matter. It's in the
Oh
past.
yeah. Damn, I forgot about that. That's a profound baboon right
That was a
there.
very profound moment. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. This
Yeah.
is what you
See,
learn.
he's like the wisest guy,
He was
right?
the
He's the
wisest
wisest
one.
one in that. He's like the Yoda. He's like your dad, you know?
I have so many quotes from my old man. It's crazy. And I just go to it sometimes and I just like reminisce of just kind of like, oh my God, because his
Yeah.
vernacular is way simpler than mine, but it's way more realer. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think it just comes from maybe it just comes from like age, right?
Of
Like those
course,
kind
yes.
of
Yeah. And you know
things.
something
Yeah.
that I learned from my dad too? When he said the one thing he did that he canceled right away, he said he see a lot of fellas them and what was wrong with them. And he said, I gave up my ego right away. So he lives like an egoless life. If that makes sense.
Mm.
But he takes pride in what he does.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that's ego though.
That's why, and he
Like
lives an
taking
ego
pride in ego. Yeah,
less. Like he doesn't,
yeah,
and like none of it is like he just tries to like he's just like, hey, ego ain't gonna help me make no money.
yeah, yeah,
Ego
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
make more trouble for me than it's
Yeah,
worth. You know, he just like, oh,
yeah,
my bad, my bad. He just and I've always seen him do this. Like he doesn't
yeah.
get upset, nothing like that. It's just like,
It probably has to do with actually that, like his entrepreneurial business side of
oh yeah,
things that, because like I always say like running a business humbles you like more than anything else. You know, like
oh yeah,
at the end of the day, ego kills business. You
it
know,
really does. It really,
like if you met me like 10 years ago, my ego was through the roof. Like,
oh, yeah.
and
But
I'm actually grateful.
what
Yeah.
happened 10 years ago?
No, like my that's my natural state. Like I just have I used to be so arrogant, right? And what happened was my ego got like, because your clients don't give a shit about your ego, right? Yeah, like the market doesn't care about your feeling, right?
Yeah,
Like dollars, like dollar bills don't care about your feeling, right?
I know.
It's either if your product is good, if what you're doing is good, the money's gonna come. If not, it's not gonna come.
Mm,
If my opinion is wrong, it doesn't matter how much I think is right,
mm,
it's not gonna come, right? And so that quickly, little by little, because I would say, oh no, this design is gonna work. Like all of these people are stupid. This is what's gonna work, right? And then we'll put it out,
yeah,
and it doesn't convert, or it doesn't get the traffic, or it doesn't do well. Like then, like the market is telling me the answer. That's not, you're wrong, right?
yeah,
And that happening over and over and over and over, and like clients leaving because of my ego, and like over and over and over happening. It just like kept every time, like it kept stomping me over, like a
yeah,
squash me like a bug every time, right?
yeah.
And after you go through that for years, your ego gets tired, and your ego starts to
Right?
disappear little by
Yeah, no,
little.
I totally agree with that. Oh, you want this extra thing? You know what? Sure, we'll throw it in. Sure,
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah,
I don't have to fight.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Even that arguing just becomes yeah,
it becomes pointless.
and I think that's what happened to me. Yeah.
Mm. Uh, did
So I'm thankful that, like, even though my
you have
ego,
did your ego have a backwards hat too?
like backwards hat, all white,
Oh,
it's the opposite. Yeah, like I think my ego slowed me down from growing. Like if I didn't have my ego at all from the beginning,
mm,
my business probably would have grown a lot faster. But it does definitely slowed me down. But I'm definitely grateful for going through this experience,
yeah. I mean, we
because
wouldn't be here.
otherwise I would still be,
Yeah, but
yeah,
I mean, we wouldn't be here. You know.
yeah, and my ego would be like still through the roof, right? Like,
throwing
so I'm glad.
dollar bills out of a skyscraper. No, it's good. It's good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know it's getting late there. It was great chat, George. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate it again. The
um,
community has been awesome. The community was awesome. My tail titans have
yeah.
been
The people
awesome. I'm
is
letting y'all know. Don't make me.
I can't take any credit for the people of the community. They're it's just I always say, well, I don't know what I did to deserve these amazing people, but
Nah, you
like
did.
all the
You did
small group
honestly an
leaders.
amazing job, for real. You did.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I'll see you Sunday.
I'll see you Sunday.
Um,
And
and have a great night.
yeah, keep it
And
simple.
yeah, keep it. Yeah, the final advice is keep it simple.
Keep it simple. All right.
All right.
See ya.
Cheers, George.